Tom Kim's the man to beat this week at TPC Summerlin at the Shriners Children's Open, back-to-back in 2022 and 2023. Is there really any way you should be betting on Tom, though, this week? We have all of the information here on the Golf Bet Roundtable. Chris Brees, Will Gray, and Benny Betts has a motto this week on Tom Kim.
To Kim or not to Kim? That is the question. We have to figure that out, don't we? We have to see how we go. Tommy Kim, obviously he's been a horse for this course, only played it twice, and is absolute superstar, won both times. So he's undefeated, 2-0. We've got to see how he goes from here on out. But yeah, look, the short odds, he's already come in from 14-1 to 12-1, so we'll see what happens from here.
All I know is that now we're back in Vegas, and it gives me flashbacks to earlier this year when the two of you were chasing people across the strip, asking them who was going to, emerge at Super Bowl Media Day, who's going to win the Phoenix Open. And listen, anytime we get some content around Las Vegas, it's fine by me.
I've got the Kansas City Chiefs plus 200 to win the WM Phoenix Open, by the way. Okay, Tom Kim, I joked about this. Tom Kim has replaced Keith Mitchell as the top odds getter in an event. Last week it was Mitchell plus 1,600. He's nowhere to be found, even though he's in this field this week. It's Tom Kim, and Taylor Pendrith is a sneaky name this week, Ben, because coming off that President's Cup, any reason to see why he could have some form this week?
He plays well here. He plays half decent there at TPC Summerlin. He's sneaky good. And as you said, he's maybe going to get a boost of confidence. I've talked about this before. I know the international team lost the President's Cup. It's a habit for them to do so. But what's also a habit is their players going well on tour post-President's Cups. They get together. They get a lot of confidence from playing amongst the best players, from playing half decent, just getting in that vibe. So Taylor Pendrith could boost from the President's Cup, even though it's a losing effort, into good performance on the PGA Tour. In fact, I'm expecting some big love from a lot of those guys in the coming months. That's for sure.
I think it's interesting looking at Tom Kim. Chris, you mentioned with Keith Mitchell last week. If I'm choosing, I would much rather have Tom Kim at 12-1 this week than Keith Mitchell at 16-1 last week. Yes, granted he didn't win, but looking at this, that last week was really wide open, and now you have a better player, a more established star, someone that knows what it takes to win on the PGA Tour with frequency, going back to a course where he's gone back-to-back. I think our colleague Mike Glasscott noted he has made 7 bogeys in 144 holes over the last 2 years, including going 72 without a bogey in 2022. Yeah. I think, we can spend some time on Tom, the choo-choo train here at the top, but my concern is he just hasn't played a lot of golf, right? If you go back to the Open Championship, he played the Olympics, he played Memphis, and he played the President's Cup, and that's it. And so he hasn't had a ton of reps, so to speak, during a time of the season where a lot of his peers have had much more time inside the ropes. But, man, anytime he's showing up in Las Vegas and at TPC Summerlin, it's hard to look the other way.
12-1 is not –
it's hard to look
Go
the
ahead.
other way.
Sorry, Ben. What's that?
It's hard to look the other way, but you still can. It comes down to the age-old debate. For me, it's like course history versus current form. And you've just tipped into it there, Will. When you're getting 12-1, you want a combination of both, really. You want to see not just the fact that he's dominated his course, but that he's playing half decent coming in. Well, he's had big dips on his putting this season, which is what got him home at Summerlin the last 2 years. He's been outstanding, plus 12 or something over those 2 tournaments. As you said, only 7 bogeys as well. No 3-putts one of the years. He's had multiple 3-putts this year. His putting inside 10 feet, which was clutch at Summerlin, has also dropped this season. His greens and regulation has dropped this season. So there are a few concerns for me when it comes to Tom Kim, given what he's doing at the moment. Again, he was 50th too out of 70 guys in the FedEx St. Jude. So he's not coming in with great form. He used up a lot of energy at the President's Cup without actually getting a winning record as good as he was. He was a 1-2-1 player there. So there are reasons to stay away from the 12-1. He's definitely a wait-and-see guy for me. I think he can do it. But the other thing, too, is, what was it? Stricker, the last guy to do it in 2011, to win 3 of the same in a row. It's been a lot of chances since then, and no one's done it. There's something in that.
Was it 16?
You're a trend guy.
Yeah, we were running through the record books here before the show started. There have been more chances than I think maybe people would think in the intervening 13 years. We counted up 16 at official tour events, and there have been some close calls, right? Brooks Koepka was second at the U.S. Open in 2019, but more recently, Scottie Scheffler was T3 at Phoenix this past year. Sam Burns had a top 10 going for 3 in a row at the Valspar last year. So there have been some chances. You kind of feel like we are due for someone to go 3 in a row. Last being, as you said, Steve Stricker, 2009, 10, 11 at the John Deere Classic. But there are definitely more variables, I feel like, for Tom Kim this week than maybe we saw each of the previous 2 years when he did win. But Ben, I do agree with you in terms of the focus on the greens. We've seen the stats show, as many courses are on the PGA Tour, they lean towards the ball strikers. You have to hit really good approach shots at TPC Summerlin to give yourself some birdie opportunities. But at the end of the day, it's, are you going to make those 10, 15, 20 footers? And this is a week where I want a good putter to get hot and become a great putter. This is not one where I'm expecting a below average or mediocre putter to find it and even get up into the plus territory.
So if it is wait and see, like we've been doing that common theme lately, it's a big Scotty Scheffler thing, right? Give me a odds number and a point in the tournament where he's at relative to par, where he's at relative to the leaderboard, that both of you, Will, let's start with you, would be comfortable saying that's worth it for me, Tom Kim, betting this week.
I mean, I don't mind him that much at 12-1, depending on how you want to set up your card and break out your units. I think if you have an opportunity to get him at 20-1 plus 2,000 or higher on Thursday when he's still got a lot of golf left, maybe if he's out late and someone else has gone out early, that's going to get my attention just because he does have the ability to put a 63 on the board at a moment's notice at this course. And that's what it's going to take to potentially get back into the swing of things. I don't know that I would look to have him, at 60 or 70-1 and trying to erase a 7 or 8 shot deficit on Sunday or even late on Saturday. But I think as long as you've got, 3 or 3+ rounds still to go, there's going to be a chance that he could really just spike a number. And even if that happens to come off of a slow start, because as we said, he just hasn't played a ton of golf. So it wouldn't be a total shock to see him come out slowly out of the gates Thursday. But at some point, you got to put the birdies on the board, right? If you're in the 70s at any round at this event, at this course, you're done. You can't win.
If he shoots higher than his personal best there, which is 68, played 8 rounds, nothing worse than 68. If he goes above that, I think he's in trouble. But I like to see him, like if he's 4 back day one, or even, here's the thing, if he's 6 back going to the weekend, I can consider him because his scoring average on the weekend is actually 64, 65 and a half, the whole court tournament, but he's had 62 both Saturdays. So it's there for him to chase and go after if he's within 6 max going into the last 36. That's when you can consider him. I like what Will said. I really think you wait though on day one. You see where he is day one. If he hits that 20-1 and you are keen on him, that's when you do it. If you wait, he ends up going further back. He's going further back for a reason because he's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then it's probably a bridge too far because he just won't be fully engaged and checked into the tournament. Within 4 after 1 round is sort of where I'd be looking. Within 6 after 2, and still playing half decent. Like that's when I'd be looking at Tom Kim.
And by the way, let me give both these guys credit where it's due because it goes to our next topic. Ben and Will were both all over Matt McCarty. The problem was it was 2 weeks ago, and true Golfbet status form of being one event too early on Matt McCarty. You guys both loved him 2 weeks ago, who had only had 1 PGA Tour start at that time, then 2 before getting that victory last week in Utah. So it got us thinking, if we can almost nail that one, let's maybe give the viewers a chance to nail another one. So we have a list here, a kind of a consensus list of Golfbet of who could be the next breakout winner. Ben, let's start with you. Is your breakout winner on this list even?
He is there because the other guys I would look at have actually won previous, whether it's a few years back or whatever else. We're looking for first-time guys here, right? So this it actually hurts me to say it, but it's Beau Hossler sitting there. I think that he's finally got a course that he could get some luck on. He's not going to win on tour unless he gets some luck, right? I'm not saying over the 4 days. I'm saying he's going to get himself in contention a lot of times because he's that good. He's good enough to do that. We've seen that time and time again. That's not in question. The question is whether he can close in the key moment on Sunday. He needs luck in that moment. He needs his opponent to, duck hook one into the rocks or do something ridiculous and put it in the desert. So I still feel like just total game. And we're talking about this week where he's played well before. This sets up for him. It should be on his radar. He's got to sit there and think, I've got to strike while the iron's hot. So Bo Hostler with an asterisk for me, hoping he gets some luck, whoever's up there with him on Sunday.
Horseshoes and hand grenades, Chris. That's basically what our Matt McCarty handicap came up to 1 week early. So close. It almost counts. I will say, my winner is also here, but I want to talk about someone else first, of course. Maverick McNeely being at 4,500 is very intriguing to me. I feel like he should be in that 28-33 range where we see Hostler and Eric Cole. So that's kind of interesting. I feel like maybe we're sleeping a little bit on Mav, as he's had a few chances to get that first win, and it hasn't come through. He's had some injury issues earlier this year. So that's certainly one to keep an eye on. But I really like Ben Griffin this week. As you saw here, he's got a runner-up this year. He was T11 last week in Utah, narrowly missed out on what would have been, I believe, his 5th top 10 of 2024. And again, this is a guy who's among the best putters on the PGA Tour. He's really good with the irons. This is not a course that's going to punish him for mistakes as much off the tee, which is really Ben Griffin's weak spot. You've got some relatively wide fairways and targets off the tee. So now you have a situation where the approach where he's really good and the putting where he's really good should further accentuate what he's able to do. And I do think it's interesting from a geography perspective. Usually the Shriners is kind of off on an island, right? Last year we went from Mississippi to Vegas, and then you're going out to Zozo in Japan. But now with the introduction of the Black Desert, it's a 2-hour drive from southern Utah over to Vegas. You've had guys that just had 4 days of, it's not the same, but it's similar style of golf. You're out in the mountains, kind of arid conditions. And so maybe that could lend a little bit of an edge toward the players that both played last week and played well last week to feel like, hey, maybe they're going to find their comfort zone a little bit more quickly than folks like Tom Kim or others that are kind of coming in blind or off of rest this week at TPC Summerlin.
Annoyingly, he makes a great point there because my winner did not play last week. But look, it is a good point because elevation's quite similar too. So dialed in your numbers, dialed in your irons, etc. That 5% rule or somewhere nearabouts. It's one thing to know the math. It's another thing to actually execute and know under the gun that it's going to do what you want it to do. So there are some players, and in my best bet later is a guy that played last week. So at least I've got that going for me. But yeah, look, mate, Griffin's all right, but he's not as good as my winner. Let's flash it up, Chris.
Well, I'm confused at why your winner's odds are lower than Ben Griffin. When's the last time Adam Hadwin did something?
I'll tell you why, because he's got 4 top 10s. 4 top 10s in the last 5 starts at Summerlin. He's a Summerlin specialist. He was runner-up last year, and he's carved it up. And in terms of like those last 5 starts at the course, the only guy with more strokes gained total is, of course, Tom Kim, who won both times. Look, it's a place that he feels really comfortable at. Hadwin likes going there. He likes having the week there in Vegas. He's feeling pretty good. And this is a weird one, but he wasn't on the President's Cup team. Mm-hmm. But the fact he missed out on the President's Cup team is a motivator. We saw it with Mackenzie Hughes 2 years ago. He missed out on a spot at Quail Hollow, turned up in the fall and won at Sanderson Farms. I'm thinking Adam Hadwin, feeling the same, like, you made a mistake. You should have had me there. I'm going to show you. He's going to win here in the fall at the Shriners Children's Open. Again, look, he's done plenty, but not enough. It's a weird one where, ask Adam Hadwin, have you had a good career? Yeah, he's been all right. He's got a win. He's had a 59, whatever, but he probably still wants more. I think it's there for him to take this week. As I said, I'm going with the fact that only one other player has been better. He's over a shot per round in strokes gained total to the 3rd best guy. Tom Kim's a shot ahead of him. He's a shot back. And then you've got the rest of the field going well below that. So there's plenty of reasons to get on Adam Hadwin this week.
And I will add, for a Canadian, he's got some more experience than maybe you think in the desert. As you said, he's played well here before. He has that 59 that was at PGA West or in the American Express in that rotation of courses out in Palm Springs. Longtime resident in Scottsdale and played out of Whisper Rock. So these are conditions that are similar to what he is used to playing a lot when he's away from PGA Tour golf, even though he hails from north of the border.
So if you're going to go with course history, I'm going to go with recent form. And I went into the weeds on this, guys. Nobody in this field has gained more strokes on a field in the last 5 events than JJ Spawn. Shout out to our great stats crew at PGATour.com. 2.3 strokes per round for JJ Spawn. Hasn't been a win. Hasn't even been a top 5, but there's been many top 10s. There's been 3 in his last 6 events. I like the fact that, he came back after what was probably an injury at Sanderson Farms a few weeks ago. He WD'd there. he did pretty well at Utah, and you're about to tell me why this is a terrible pick.
I'm going to tell you, you've just mentioned the anomaly that you didn't pick up on our great stats, guys, is that they wiped out when he had the WD. His terrible performance in that effort. So when they wipe out that round, it doesn't go as good.
He played one round. He played one round.
Yes, he played one poor round. One poor round. So it wouldn't change things too much. It wouldn't change things too much, but it does help take that out of his last 5 rotation.
JJ Spawn might be the kind of guy where you're wondering if he still has what it takes to win.
Again, another one that I want to see under the gun on Sunday, but I wouldn't mind if it was him and Hostler. I might have a chance.
Listen, there is still something to be said for, especially when we get into these fall events, as we've seen the last 2 weeks, first-time winners versus at Napa, you had Patton Kizzire get his first win in several years. Spawn is a former champion on tour, having won the Valero a few years back, and so you wonder when you get in the mix of guys that know what it takes to win versus guys that are trying to get that first win. We saw some of the shakes from Bo Hostler at Sanderson Farms, whereas Kevin Yu was able to, put the pedal down when he needed to in a similar spot. But that's definitely one of those variables that I look into when we get into in-play bets, when we're looking at Saturday and Sunday at these fall events. That experience and knowing how to handle those situations really goes a long way for these events and some of the guys that are on the board.
You learn a lot about certain guys, and that's what was really cool about McCarty last week, right? Yeah. He was a winner clearly on the Korn Ferry Tour, did it 3 times, but to take that winning mentality and to close out a tournament on the PGA Tour so quickly proves that this guy's got a future a long-term future in the game from here on out. He might be a late bloomer, but he's got what it takes to close. We saw that. That is huge, because if you've got that quality, that's going to get you home more often than not.
Let's get into long shots. And when we preface long shots, not necessarily to win, but we're talking about players that you should look at in any market that you want. And Will, your guy is an excellent example of this, of any kind of market you want and the value you're going to get on Jacob Bridgeman.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely one where I'm starting to look at the FedEx Cup standings. We still have, a few events left before we're having a firm cutoff at the 125, but Jacob Bridgeman is sitting there at 118. He needs a good week somewhere in this mix over the next 4 or 5 weeks. He needs to really put one on the board to ensure his playing status for 2025, and this could be the week to do it. As I said, similar to how I'm guiding to Ben Griffin for more of the top level winner pick. Jacob Bridgman, 8th this season on tour in strokes gained putting. He's a really good putter, and this is a week where I think he could level up, finish T26 at this event last year, and he's coming off of a strong week out in Utah. So again, 80-1 there as a long shot to win, but you can also look at, as you said, Chris, those derivative markets, top 10, top 20, where you're going to get some significant plus money prices on a guy like Jacob Bridgman that doesn't have a ton of name recognition for casual fans, but is quietly putting up some good numbers and some good performances that feel like they could gel together into a big week this week on this course, knowing that he needs a top 10 or a top 20 at some point over the next month to really solidify his card for next year.
And if you think those... Oh, go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
No, so I don't mind it. We saw him sort of pop up a little bit on the leaderboard, as Will said, and you're getting good value. So I want to find a reason to yell at him like I can yell at you, but I haven't got there yet. We'll find hopefully something further down the line in this round table. I don't mind that one, because I'm going on in a similar vein. Someone that's huge odds for a long shot. You can see that Matt Neesmith. Now his current form, just garbage, right? If you want to go on that. He's not been playing well. He's missed 3 out of his last 4 cuts. But I'll go back to what I was talking about before in horses for courses in terms of this course, where I said Hadwin, is gaining over 2 shots in his last 5 starts here, and Tom Kim was 3. Well, the guy that's 1.7 in 3rd place is none other than Matt Neesmith. So when you put that into consideration, and his results, I think, were 18th, 8th, 14th, 2nd, 42nd last year, but he's clearly got something going on this course. So when you get that in context with 100-1, and then you get that in plus money on like a top 40 is going to be good plus money, a top 20 is going to be great plus money. For me, he's the type that could just pop up all of a sudden for 1 week. One of those guys that's, he's not going to continue that form through the fall, but he might just have that breakout week where you can jag a reasonable number at plus money in the place markets.
This guy has been boom or bust. Look at these results. Cut, T48, cut, T9, cut, playoff loss, T75, cut. Seriously?
So I think
Here's
this
the
is
thing
one of the
with-
weeks, though, as I said, it's his course, right? This is one of the hopefully
Yeah.
the boom weeks. And you got to get on the boom week. That's when you get on.
Well, I think also we should talk about just the style of player that you need for this sort of week. This is going to be a shootout, right? This is going to be mid 20 unders. You need to win. There are some weeks, I think back to, my top grinder for me is Matt Fitzpatrick, a guy that loves it when it's a tough course, loves it when par is a good score. He's not in the field this week. That ain't it. It's TPC Summerlin. You need to make your birdies in bunches. And Matt Neesmith is a guy that, he can pop for a 62 or a 63. There are questions about what he does to follow it up, but he's someone that I trust to go low and at least give yourself a chance versus some of these guys. Listen, if you're used to, grinding it out and shooting a 68 on a par 71, getting to 12 under for the week and cashing a check, you might not make the cut this week at 6 under. So you definitely need to have guys in your handicap. You need guys that you trust to go low, put up birdies quickly, get into those 64, 65s on Thursday and Friday, because otherwise you're going to be left in the dust this week.
Remind me, guys. My long shot, Henrik Norlander. Was it Procore or was it Sanderson that was just his course?
Sanderson.
It was Sanderson.
Yes.
I'm going him a couple of weeks later, not just because he played well at Sanderson, but this is the kind of guy who seems like he's kind of figured it out in the last couple of weeks. I mean, he's been near the tops of leaderboards, top 12s, a bunch of them in his last handful of starts. And this is a scrambler's golf course. We were looking at our key stats earlier today. This is a scrambler's golf course. 2 of the last 3 winners ranked first in scrambling. The other one, Tom Kim, was 9th, I believe. Norlander's 3rd on tour in scrambling. So I'm kind of playing this whole narrative of the fall as your springboard. Well, he's been sitting right there. We're waiting for him. I'm waiting for him. And I actually don't mind this as an outright bet either.
I think he's definitely in form.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. Oh, just again, he's in form, and it's the right time of year for him. I like him in those place markets if you're still getting value. I like the top 20. If you're getting 66 to 1 on an outright, I like the top 20 as a staple for Norlander right now. What I didn't like, the few bits that I was watching him closely in the Utah desert, is when he got a little wayward and ended up in the lava rock. I'm a little worried that if he gets a little wayward this week, he'll end up in the desert in those rocks as well. Maybe not as damaging as the lava rock, but still potentially, a dropped shot and a big number. He's got to get the big numbers off the card to go with the amount of birdies he's putting up. He's definitely showing that he can make birdies. He's just got to get the big number off his card as well.
I'm not a doctor, but I do think it's good to avoid the lava rock when you can, as we saw last week. Listen, Norlander, this is his time of year, as you said, right? Some people are fourth quarter specialists on the calendar. He playoff loss at Sanderson last year, playoff loss at the RSM a couple years back. So he's been in the mix at these fall events, and as we said, he was on a lot of radars at Sanderson, didn't quite perform as well. Then he comes out last week in Utah and kind of did what everyone thought he was going to do at Sanderson. So this is an interesting one to see how he follows that up. I'm kind of siding with Ben, especially for a guy that's has been on and off the tour for several years, still has yet to win. I lean more towards those top 10, top 20 markets versus the outright. But listen, man, if you shoot your shot here, Brees, and hit it, good for you.
Let me ask you this, Will, and even Chris here. He strikes me as a guy who's, you said, he comes up in the fall. Do you think there is literally something in the confidence factor when you don't have the Schefflers and the Cantlayers and all these big names? Do you think these, for want of a better term, fringe guys sit there and think, well, hang on a minute, I know I'm as good as X, Y, and Z that's here this week. And it just gives them that little bit of boost of confidence going into these events without having to worry, oh, I hope Scheffler plays bad, or I hope so-and-so is not on his game. Do you think there's something in that?
I think there's a little bit in terms of going back to places and a stretch of the schedule where you've performed well before. We've seen it with other guys. If you flip the script and you have West Coast specialists, right, that make their mint in those first 6 or 7 weeks out in California and Phoenix, and they struggle to make the transition over to Florida. Sometimes you just have a set of courses that really suit your eye, but I do think there's something with the calendar cadence that fits with certain guys to say, hey, I know I played well here in this position last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, what have you, especially in this cauldron where you've got the bubble coming closer and closer on the horizon, and guys handle that differently. And some people struggle with being able to put up, what you would shoot at the RSM Classic in July is far different than sometimes what you would shoot when it's the third week of November and your card is on the line. And so a guy like Norlander, who's had some success in these situations on these courses at this time of year, that tends to build on itself for sure.
He's a system quarterback, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's a seasonal quarterback, Benny.
And we do need to start thinking about that 125 in the next few weeks as we go through the fall. We do need to start having a bit more focus on that line, that obviously the next 10 for signature events. But yeah, guys getting jobs, that's a big deal. And you have to decide whether your guy is sitting on the bubble is a guy that can step up to that moment, or is that moment going to make him shrink, and therefore you got to stay off him for the markets, even though you think he might play well.
Quickly before we go, speaking of markets, how about top 10? Ben, there's a train. There's a Harry Hall train. What is it about this guy?
UNLV product has been playing very well there. He loves going back there to play in this event. Has played, I think, top 25 or top 26 all 3 times he's played. I had him last week. I don't want to fall for the having them a week too early, like we did with Cardy. So I'm dialing him back in here in my top 10. Harry Hall, he popped a few times. He's had a really poor final round. I actually thought he was a chance to make a run on Sunday to win the thing. In fact, he went the other way. I still think I want to back him again in Vegas. I think that if his putter gets going, that short game gets going, he can absolutely put in birdies by the bunches. And so I like him for a plus 375 at top 10. Don't be afraid to look at him in the outright market as well.
By the way, I doubled up back-to-back weeks and Seamus Power top 10, T11 both weeks. I'm done with it.
We can petition the odds makers to make top 11 markets for you, Chris.
Everyone else, Chris has jumped off. Get on Power for a top 10. He's going to be T9 this week, so get on, because Chris has jumped. Get on it. Anything that can go wrong will. As these boys, I'm going to throw this in there. I know it's got.
What's up?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw this in there before we go anywhere. But guys, I just picked a 14 out of 14 NFL week and still didn't win my pool because I lost on a tiebreaker. That is just garbage, but that's the way it goes. What do you got, Will? Give us a best bet.
Not at all salty. I will say shout out to Harry Hall. We talked to him with players. He has some great stories about some of the money games they played back in his UNLV days. Yeah. So I'm sure he's happy to be back close to the strip. I'm going with let's ride the hot hand, right? Matty Schmid just shot a 62 on Sunday out in Utah. Came out of nowhere to snag a top 5. So that would have been a good top 5 or top 10 ticket to cash on Sundays. He raced up the board and was sitting there at T2 for a good long while before finishing solo 5th. But again, this is someone who's a high variance character. But I think that coming into this week where he is going back to a course where he had a top 30 last year. And now if you go back to the 3M Open, he's been inside the top 30 in 4 of his 6 starts, including last week in Utah. So again, similar to Ben Griffin, I'm taking guys that played last week, played pretty well, have something to build off of, and now they're going to a similar course. And I think Matty Schmid sitting there at plus 400 for a top 10 is going to make my list for sure.
My top 11, Tom Hoge. I'm backdooring this top 10. I don't need him to shoot 65 every day and be in contention. Another TPC course, by the way, that he played well at, River Highlands, 3 months ago, was in the top 3, played really well. Again, this is a strokes game.
Course record or a place called Sawgrass, Chris.
As well, too. Okay, you're right about that. So another TPC, rack it up there. I'm feeling better and better about this. Hoge is known for his wedges, right, and his iron play. Strokes gained approach, massive this week. He is 3rd in strokes gained approach on tour. Recently played well, too. T7 at Procore. So whatever you want to say about Tom Hoge and his ability to win, again, we don't need the guy to win. I think he's got the game. He hasn't played a whole lot lately, but I don't think he necessarily needs to play a lot like some of these guys do. I think he's comfortable in his own skin, and it's the kind of player that you might not assume. This is why his number's pretty high at plus 320 for a top 10. Assume he's going to do it, but I think he's got the game to do it.
I think the key here too is I'm going back to my memory bank, so I apologize if I've got this wrong, because I've been to a few of these Shriners, but maybe last year he struggled, but before that was pretty good out there. I remember him being in contention maybe 2 or 3 years ago, for definite sure, top 5 maybe. So you might be getting a little value because of the miscut last year, whereas, that might be an anomaly, or hopefully for your sake, Chris, it's an anomaly, and you're still getting some value there on this top 10 because of it. His striking, as you said, is when it's on, he is actually one of the best in the game. Not like he can push Scheffler, not quite Scheffler-esque, but he can push him for numbers if he gets his irons absolutely hot. That's how good that part of his game is. He's just got to get the rest to go with it.
When we're in Vegas, sometimes you get free play at the casino. You get a little promo at the front desk, and that's basically what we have here with Tom Hoagie, right? His schedule next year is totally set. He's in the signature events. A lot of guys this week are facing that pressure that we've talked about for figuring out their status. Are they going to get in the full fields? Are they going to stay in the top 125? Tom Hoagie does not need to worry about that, so he does have a chance to just kind of, shoot for pins, and if he finishes top 10 versus a missed cut, it's not going to make a huge difference for his schedule in 2025. I will say the last time we saw Tom Hoagie, he was getting inducted into the TCU Hall of Fame, and the Horned Frogs got absolutely housed by Houston at home. That was not good. That was not good mojo. He's going to have to bounce back from that, and we'll see if he's going to be able to rebound a couple weeks later.
Sounds like somebody else has some bad memories of some football gambling they just did. That's just the vibe I just got.
Who's to say?
Boys, when's our flight leave to Vegas? Aren't we getting out there to throw a few dice and count a few cards? What's going on?
Talk to your boss.